Hey everyone, Anne O'Connell with OC Publishing here, and welcome to the Author Journey. Every week we have very special guests on who talk about their writing journeys, how the publishing process has been for them, their creative process, and all of that wonderful stuff kind of all rolled into our weekly author journeys. And today is no different. We have a special guest who's returning. 𝐴𝐵𝐿 Gidley has been on the show before, and she is a beloved OC Publishing author who has had books published with a few different publishers, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. And today we thought we would talk about both of our books that have come out recently. We're going to celebrate the launch of her newest book, Finding Serenissima. Look how gorgeous is that. And my newest book, Deep Freeze. But before we do that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about, you all know about me. I'll tell you a little bit about 𝐴𝐵𝐿, and then we'll bring her up and we'll have a chat. So if anybody's watching live and you have questions for either of us, please pop them in to the comments, and we'll watch for them as they come up. So 𝐴𝐵𝐿 has a transient life and has seen Anglo-Australian 𝐴𝐵𝐿 Gidley live in countries as diverse as Trinidad and Thailand, Nigeria, and the Netherlands, and another 8 in between. Now let that sink in. Her nomadic tendencies saw the first draft of Finding Serenissima take place on St. Croix in the US Virgin Islands, and the last in South Cambridgeshire, England, where she currently lives. Her roles have been varied: editor, intercultural trainer for multinational corporations, British honorary consul to Equatorial Guinea, among others. Gidley began writing in 2010, and this, her 6th book, will be followed by a return to historical fiction with the publication of Annie's Day in November 2025. She has written for magazines, has short stories and anthologies, leads the 𝐬𝐿TON jotters in their search for the perfect story, and writes an irregular blog, A Broad View. Research has started on her next historical novel, once again set amidst the turmoil of war. So one of the things that I want to chat with her about is how us authors decide what genres to write. So without further ado, let me bring 𝐴𝐵𝐿 up to join me.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, 𝐴𝐵𝐿. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me on again. It's fun.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. And I do think the last time that you were on the author journey, we had 3 of you talking about historical fiction, right?
Yeah,
We discussed
Bruce Bishop was on, and
Yep. Diane
Diane
Lloyd-Boehm, yes,
that's
another
right.
OC Pub author. So
Yeah.
really happy to have you on. And we were talking kind of backstage just how our paths have crossed so many times over the last 15 years, but always in cyberspace. So never once like in the same room, but maybe someday we'll change that. So
hopefully someday soon.
Yeah, I hope so. So congratulations on your new book.
Thank you. And to you on yours.
Thank you. One of those things that just, they keep happening, don't they?
Yeah. But each one is really special. Each time a book comes out, someone said to me the other day, so, this is your 6th book that's come out. How do you feel about it? And I said, it is still as terrifying when it first hits the public. I still bawl my eyes out the first minute, when I first open the box. I cry when I finish the first draft.
Yeah.
It's incredibly emotional, each one, and that doesn't seem to change, which is kind of nice because it means you're still invested in it.
Right. And that's, I mean, when we talk about the joy of writing, there's a lot of pain involved as well. But when you're saying that you're crying, are they tears of joy or?
Oh, well, it's almost relief. The first draft is done, it's down. And then there's going to be lots and lots more work to do. But it's just, you've got all those thoughts out and all those characters who've been playing in your head for, months, all out there. And it's a wonderful feeling.
It is. That finally release them.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think the whole process for me of writing is I love the research. I love the actual writing. I even love the editing because
Mhm.
every writer I've had has made me a better writer without
Mhm.
what I don't like is the marketing
Oh,
that I
oh,
really, really, really don't like.
I know. Well, let's talk about that,
Oh,
in a few minutes, but
oh,
because, that's one of the, like, the challenges for
mm,
sure. And you mentioned editors, so, we actually now have shared an editor,
mm.
with the books you had
Yeah,
done
with
with us.
Marianne Ward, yeah.
Yeah, Marianne Ward, who's phenomenal,
Mm.
and, I was a little bit scared to, say,
Sure.
"Okay, I'm a publisher now, so I really truly have to stick to the process that
Mhm.
I have put in place
Sure.
for my authors,
Mhm.
right?" So, we would have these discussions and she would say, "Anne, you're the author now." And I'm like, "Oh, right, right, okay, okay." So, but you're right, this doesn't matter how many books come out, it's almost like it feels like the first one.
Mm.
And, are people going to even like this?
Mhm.
And I've had a few reviews the last couple of days that have just blown me away. And I'm like, did I write that?
Yeah, that's great.
Does it ever feel like that to you? Like kind of
Yeah,
like an out of body experience? Who is
yeah,
this
it's
other
just,
person?
I'm just so, I actually find it an honor that people read the book and then can be bothered to write the review because, as you know, getting reviews is really difficult. And
Yeah.
so if someone has taken the time to A, read the book, well, firstly,
Mhm.
buy the book, then read the book,
Right.
and then actually bother to write a review, it's
Mhm.
really something. And I really value it.
That's
Uh,
huge.
so it is huge, yeah.
It very
Because
huge.
everybody has a busy life. I mean,
Yeah,
we have busy lives. Everyone has a busy life. So the fact that
absolutely.
someone can be bothered to take the time to do that,
Yeah.
I think is a
I
great honor.
And it's so funny, I always say, if somebody says, "Oh, are you gonna review that?" I always say, "No, I'm gonna have them on the author journey." Right? Figure,
Yeah.
that's sort of the way I
Yeah.
like to, give
Yeah, but
back
you're a
in my
huge
life.
support to authors, whether they're your authors or anyone. You really are. It's fantastic.
Well,
Um,
because I have so much fun with it.
mm,
It's really, a win-win all around
mm,
because, who doesn't like to talk to like-minded people
mm,
and explore and learn? Like,
mm.
you keep learning from each
Yeah,
other. And
absolutely.
we were talking, we were just mentioned historical fiction because, your first sort of focus and love, other
Mm,
than your memoir, was historical
mm,
fiction.
mm,
So why the shift to finding Serenissima? I mean, it's present day. Um, it's current
mm,
issues, like a woman whose husband has Alzheimer's. Like, there are no spoilers here,
mm,
but it's very in the very beginning of the book. What
mm,
kind of triggers? It's the inciting incident that we
mm,
call it,
mm.
that sends her on her journey. Sort of, kind of an eat, pray, love, but she's doing all of that in Italy in Serenissima. So, how did the shift happen?
You sort of say, eat, pray, love, yes, but she's a lot older. I mean, I'm in my 60s, and it's you don't often find something of someone of a protagonist who is an older woman, and so I thought that
Mhm.
would be quite fun.
I love it.
And honestly, in my naivety, I thought, oh, well, writing contemporary fiction, it'll just be a quick book to write because there won't be nearly as much research.
Right.
How wrong could I be? It took just as much research, but just a
Yeah.
different kind of research. As you must know, I mean, you're writing contemporary fiction.
Mhm.
Um, and I really enjoyed writing it, some of it because the language is current. So
Mhm.
with Amelia's daughters, um, I could hear my daughter in my head a lot of the time.
Yeah.
She probably wouldn't like me saying that I could.
Oh, she'll love
And
it.
and her friends and things. So that made
Mhm.
that that part of the writing, the dialogue part of the writing, a bit easier.
Mhm.
But everything else, you have to do just as much research. It's just different kinds of research.
Oh,
Like
for
how a water
sure.
taxi goes from does it go from this stop to that stop? Is that shop still there? So all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
I was sharing with you, I just came back from a research trip, quote unquote, to Paris for my next book. And I always say, like, I love to immerse myself in my characters' environment, in their body, in their mind. And I think most authors do. And this book has been burbling around in my head for 10 years, like since the last time I was in Paris. It was originally going to be a standalone. And then when things the momentum started going with my series, I thought, gosh, I really want to write that book, but I feel I should continue with the series. And so I'm like, I will just make that a deep mystery. So, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And then I also had been wanting to do this writing retreat in Paris that I had been getting newsletters for also since the last time I was there. And so just the planets aligned, everything came together. I did the retreat. Marianne came with me, and it was such a wonderful addition. I'd like to have her join me. I said, oh, why don't you come? You can help me do research. So we've revisited some of the places that are going to feature prominently in the book.
Do you have a title for it yet?
Deep River.
Oh,
yes, the Seine, of course. I had it in my mind, and then as I was doing research, I discovered that the Seine isn't really all that deep. So it's metaphorical.
That's okay. That's
I know, right?
So sorry, I'm holding up Anne's book because it really is a terrific read. It really is.
Thank you, Apple.
So you've got two set in the Middle East. The next one, Deep River, will be in France.
Yes.
You can't just drop Susan then.
No. Thank you. I'm so happy.
Ongoing. Where are you going next?
I'm so happy you said that, because during the plot line of Deep River, she will start to learn more about her Acadian French roots. And yes, a couple of generations back, her family lived in Nova Scotia. So I'm going to bring Susan home to Nova Scotia. And I think my working title for book 4 will be Deep Roots. So, she'll be kind of exploring her roots. And I don't want to give too much away, but she'll start to renovate an old house on the coast, of Nova Scotia. I haven't decided on the exact location.
And then where will she go?
Well, and then my thought is, so of course, then there's going to be another 2 like traumatic, mysteries that she's solved, and she needs a little getaway. And in each book, she takes up kind of a new, athletic focus or exercise or activity. She's a runner, and so in Paris, of course, in Dubai, the temperature kind of keeps you from running very often. So she's loving the
speed.
So she's loving running along the Seine. But she's going to take up free diving when she moves to Nova Scotia. But she's going to find the water too cold here, so she's going to go after Deep Roots. She's going to go on vacation in Thailand.
Okay.
And that's going to be Deep Dive.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. And also because we've touched on Thailand, particularly in Deep Freeze.
Yes, that's correct.
So that would, you see, what your listeners might not know is that I lived in the Caribbean for 10 years, and I invited Anne to come and stay with us in St. Croix, and she never made it. So she had Susan solve a murder in the Caribbean.
Yes. Well, and you know what? Maybe that will happen. Maybe she'll go to St. Croix instead of Thailand. It's closer to here, right? Maybe. So we'll have to talk about that. Yes. Yes. Yeah. And you have a great story collection called Crucian Fusion.
Yeah, that was a fun book to write. That was a really self-indulgent book. It was sort of through COVID. and it was essays and short stories, which I love writing, and then interviews with people that I really, really, really wanted to know more about.
Oh, I love that.
And so it was such an honor to talk to these people, both, 𝐾𝐿, who are the people from St. Croix, and others. So it was just imports, if you like. So it was a lovely book to write.
I love that. And so we kind of went off topic a little bit. We were talking about how
We always do.
It's okay. It's okay. We were talking about, how we choose a genre or how the genre chooses us. And you mentioned we were just talking about Crucian Fusion, which is short stories, and you say you love writing short stories. You love historical fiction, and now you have this lovely women's fiction,
contemporary and
contemporary literary, which I loved. I devoured it. And look at this amazing cover.
Gorgeous cover. That was Jessica Bell.
I know. Vineland's Press, Jessica Bell, which was one of the other sort of parallel crosses. Jessica was one of the very first reviewers and when I was just starting to learn this whole business in like 2011, 12, 13. And she did a great review of my first novel, Mental Pause. So when you said that Jessica was going to be publishing Have You Eaten Rice Today, which was your last book with Vine Leaves, I was tickled to death. So I'm very, very excited.
Yeah, it was amazing, wasn't it?
What is it that says, okay, this is the next book I'm writing, and oh my goodness, it's going to be a historical fiction, or it's going to be short stories, a collection?
Well, I have a book coming out in November, which is called Annie's Day, and that is back to historical fiction. And I like trying to tell stories in the historical fiction. I like to try and tell stories about either a country or an era that is not really that well known in the sort of global sense. So Have You Eaten Rice Today, as you know, was 1950s Malaya during a communist uprising.
So good.
Annie's Day is a story told from an Australian army nurse's perspective. And so it's her time in Singapore during the fall of Singapore, and then up in New Guinea, obviously during the war. And then she gets fed up with everything and decides to join her surviving brother in England. She gets a job in Berlin and then the Berlin blockade comes. So it's sort of horrible thing compounding on top of each other. But she gets through it. And it was an interesting perspective to write from a nurse. I'm not a nurse.
Okay.
So there's quite a lot of research went into that.
Oh, me neither. And Susan is a psychiatrist.
Yes, Susan's a nurse. Yes, exactly. What is it about us? Make life easy. Make her a writer.
Oh, boring. No. No, and you know what, when I was, speaking of research, when I was working on this, not only Susan being a psychiatric nurse, but also the majority of the book taking place in a hospital, I would be writing a scene and I'd be like, okay, does that make sense? And I'd pick up the phone and call my sister. Janet, who's a nurse, and I would read it to her. So it was either, they're removing like the breathing tube, or he's having, like, she was a cardiac care nurse, and then she actually taught nursing for years and years, and she's written the textbook. So, she's very knowledgeable. And I would read a scene to her and I'd say, okay, what does the heart monitor look like? And what is happening when they have to use the paddles? Because, if it's flat line, apparently the paddles don't work or whatever. It has, you're shocking it back into a normal rhythm. And I don't know if I'm getting that right or not, but what is in the book is accurate because I read it by my big sister.
So I've got a question for you.
Okay.
So when I write, I'm a pantser in that I'm sort of driven, but you can't be, you write mysteries. How can you? You must have the plot, because honestly, when I'm writing, it's a character that comes in my head, and then the character almost develops they develop themselves, and then the storyline comes with it. But when you're writing a mystery or a thriller, you must, otherwise you'd be forever thinking, "Oh, she can't do that. I've got to drop a red herring here, or I've got to be so in awe of someone who can write the way you do," which because I can't. My mind just doesn't work in that sort of fashion. Uh,
Well, I mean, it's interesting that you say that because I am a pantser.
oh, okay.
Yes, and one of the exercises, I'm going to show you this. One of the exercises at my retreat
Mm.
was to write out the plot line of your book, and I'm like, oh,
You can't do that.
well, I can't. 12 plot lines. Oh, where did it go? Oh, there it is. Because this is kind of fun visually, right?
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So, you know what? And a lot of it was just like make believe because, it probably won't unfold
Oh,
that way.
oh,
But I've been thinking about it for so long. And I think it was Stephen King that says by the time he sits down to write, he's written pretty much the whole book in his head.
mm,
And so I'm kind of like that because,
mhm,
I have a loose idea
mm.
and I know what the mystery is going to be, but I have no idea how it's going to be solved.
Yeah. Okay.
I have no idea. And in Deep Freeze, there was a character I was going to kill off like in chapter 2 or 3. I won't tell you which one. And she wound up being like a real central
Yeah.
actor.
Oh, interesting. Did
Yeah.
you see
So,
there was an article today, Frederick Forsyth died yesterday,
oh
and there
yeah.
was yeah, and there was an article about him, and I read it and I thought, "Oh, despair." He used to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and he would write 6,000 words, and then he'd go for a walk, and then he'd come back and edit those words. A day!
Wow.
Oh my god!
Wow.
If I wrote
Wow.
6,000 words a day, it would just be pure gibberish. And I thought, wow, I mean, the discipline in that, I think I'm pretty disciplined, and you
Yeah,
have to be, but,
yeah,
that just blew my mind.
that's
Oh,
crazy.
wow.
Yeah, and I mean, I get up and I have my breakfast and my coffee, and I come and sit at my desk every single day,
Mhm,
but I'm doing a bazillion things.
mhm,
So, of course, now and Marianne's reminding me, "Okay, you have to protect your writing time. What
mm,
can I take off your plate?" And I'm like, "Oh, bless you."
mm,
But now I really have to think long and hard about that. Like,
mm,
what because once I'm on a roll, it's
mhm.
hard for me to say, okay, I'm going to write from 9 to noon today, and then I'm going
Yeah,
to do OC publishing things this afternoon.
mm.
Because, priorities are,
Oh,
and, we have launch dates set and all that kind
oh,
of
oh, yeah,
thing, which is wonderful.
mm,
But now I'm excited about,
mm.
the next one.
Good.
Um, yeah, but which it won't come out until 2027
Yeah.
because we already have our publishing calendar. So I'm like, no, Anne, we can't get your book out in 2026.
Well, I made a mistake last year in that I had, and it was just the way it fell with Fine Leaves Press and the books coming out. And
Mhm.
with having 2 books coming out in 1 year is too much.
It
I mean,
is.
it's doing my head in.
Yes. Oh,
Um,
yes.
it was I learned a lesson there, and that
Yeah.
and it was literally just the way things fell.
Yeah.
So no, I probably won't have. Hopefully, I'll have another one out end of 2027.
Okay. But what's crazy is that you had 2 books ready to come out. Like, you must have been writing like a mad woman.
Well, I finished one, and then sort of the other one's been bubbling for years. So that was
Okay.
really once I started writing, that wasn't so bad. I'd done so much
Okay.
research, and because it was based a lot in Malaysia and places in New Guinea, places I've lived,
You've been.
you know,
Yeah.
I, like you said, you immerse yourself
Yeah.
in that place, and we've been lucky enough to live in all these places.
Yes.
That it's
So
easier for
lucky.
us, I think.
Yes. Oh, I can't wait to read them. I can't wait to read them. Okay, so we had started talking about like that great big bear called marketing,
Mm,
which is horrible.
mm,
I get a lot of joy out of like talking about books and promoting books,
mhm,
but it's really hard to move the needle, like to say, okay, we're doing a virtual book tour, or
mm,
we're gonna do like these interviews or whatever,
mhm,
and you're kind of watching for that sales needle to move. You know, do you have any things that you do that you think, or you know for sure, move that needle, or like?
I know what doesn't.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Well, this time, for the first time, I actually employed a publicist.
Okay.
And really, all they were to do were to send the sell sheets and the
Press
you
release.
know, all the PR stuff out.
Yeah.
I think 2 weeks before publication, and then, or maybe a month before, and then I can't remember the exact timing. And that just wasn't worth it for me. And I think I don't know whether it's because, you know, I'm small fry, or whether. And the more I've read, it seems that for fiction, that doesn't always work, because we don't have that, unless you're a big name already, you don't have that hook. Whereas nonfiction, you've nearly always got an immediate hook. So I think it's easier to market in that way. So I won't do that again. But what I find time and time again, it's a personal approach. You know, you get in touch with editors, you try and find common ground, and most of us got common ground over something.
Right.
And that for me works more than, you know, getting someone else to do it for you.
Yeah, the personal touch.
Yeah.
It's hard because, you know, most authors would rather be writing
Absolutely.
than calling, you know,
Yeah.
podcasters.
And the thing I found coming back to UK, not having lived here before, or in England for sure, is I've had to sort of start from scratch again. So I've been going, you know, I'm starting to go to more and more book fairs and things, which I have to say have been a really good market for me.
Good. Oh, that's great.
Nice. But again, it's time, you know, and I give, you know, author talks and luncheons and that kind of thing. But so yeah, it's just that's why I like talking to you now, because we're talking about your book as well. I'm pretty good at talking other people's books up, but it's a whole different story talking your own things up.
Oh, I hear you. That's why I do this, right? Absolutely. And you mentioned author talks. Like, how do you decide where you're going to do those? Is it an invitation that comes to you?
Yeah.
Do you reach out to writers groups? Or
no, I've been quite fortunate in that I've had a few people reach out to me. I'm doing an author literary luncheon talk in a couple of weeks, and so, but again, it's just, you know, small steps.
Right.
So,
right.
And then you can sell your book there. If you're lucky, you get a speaker's fee. Not always, but
right.
I'm at the stage where it's just getting myself known in England.
Yes.
And the other thing I did was last year I went to the Historical Novelists Conference.
Right. And you said that was really wonderful.
It really was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And I learned a lot.
That's amazing. I've finally had the courage to join the Crime Writers of Canada. Yay. So, yeah. So, you know, they've done some wonderful things already. You know, put my launch in the newsletter, and have promoted the author journey. You know, I've said I'd love to, you know, interview some fellow members. So I just think, you know, but don't try and do too much at once, right? And you mentioned, you know, some paid speaking engagements. Our Writers Federation of Nova Scotia is incredible. So if you're an author and you're watching, or a writer and you're in Nova Scotia or New Brunswick, I know there's a Writers Federation in New Brunswick, join, because it's well worth the membership fee. So before we wrap up, I wanted to really quickly, we talked about, you know, covers do sell books, right? You know, and when people say you can't judge a book by its cover, people do judge books by their cover. So design is so important. And we did, just very quickly, I'm just going to pull this up because this cover is absolutely stunning. You know, Jessica Bell is a very, very talented designer and publisher. So this is a Jessica Bell original. It's gorgeous. But we also, you and I have both gone through redesigns
Yeah.
of covers. So let's just talk about that really, really quickly. So mine was and I think yours is a similar reasoning. So for me, I wanted, because I'm doing the series, I wanted a series look and feel. So you see the first in the Deep Mystery series, Deep Deceit, and then the Deep Deceit, the second, and then my new book, Deep Freeze. Now you can see there is a series design. So, I mean, does that work? I mean, do you think that was a good call?
Yeah, I do. I do. Yeah.
So we re-released, we re-edited, thank you, Marianne, and re-released Deep Deceit right around the same time we did Deep Freeze. So now we have a template, and my designer is just waiting for direction for Deep River. So it'll have the same type, font, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm really thinking, so if anybody is thinking about, ideas on how I should portray Deep River, please feel free. So this one was yours. So Side by Each is transfer. So the first book that we did together with OC Publishing was Fireburn on the far right. And then the second was transfer. So the one on the far left was the original cover. And the one in the middle is the redesign. So explain.
It was very similar in that originally the cover for transfer, the first cover, was going to be an original painting done actually by the same artist, a woman called 𝐸𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐷𝐸𝐿. And then for various logistical reasons, it didn't work. And remember, we were trying to get it out in time for the 30th, in October, so that it coincided
with the transfer,
with the historical event.
Yeah.
And so it was sort of all a bit crazy, and it's a great cover, but it just didn't match the first one.
Right. Other than the type.
Then another artist friend of mine in St. Croix, a woman called Toni Lance, I was actually probably moaning to her.
Sometimes it's the only way we get things done.
Use one of mine. And so the actual colors were a lot more subdued on her original painting. And she just manipulated them, and I love it. And they match now.
They're beautiful. Yes.
Yeah. So it's exactly as you said. If you're going to do, and when I wrote Fireburn, I didn't know it was going to be a sequel, did I?
That's right. That's right.
But I am pleased with it now.
I think it's beautiful, and I mean, you might not remember, but was there a spike? Do you remember? Was there a spike in sales?
Yeah, there was a bit of a spike after it came out again. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Whenever you can sort of rejuvenate, and everyone talks about a backlist, and our books are evergreen. So it really doesn't matter what year. I mean, the history will always be the history, right?
Exactly.
So I can't believe we're out of time, Apple.
Oh, wow.
I know. This has been so much fun. I so appreciate
so much
the conversation. It's totally my pleasure. And, I'll have you back again, and we'll find more to talk about. We never run out of things.
We never run out of things. No. Can I just say one thing about Deep Freeze?
Yes.
I disliked Mitch on about line 7. And I had no idea where it was going.
Okay.
You know why?
Did you
he had a clip-on tie.
He had a clip-on tie. Okay. Yeah, anyone who wears a clip-on tie.
There you go.
Yeah, right. I had one reviewer say that you know what? I'm not going to spoil it. But she was a little.
That's on the first page, people. So I'm not, no spoilers.
Right. No spoilers. No spoilers. Yeah. Well, thank you. And I so appreciate the review that you did on Amazon. So appreciate it. And we could go on, and we're celebrating the launch of our latest books. Mine and Apple's. Yay. Oh, look at that. Woohoo. I should have had the champagne, but cheers. And we'll talk
again soon.
Sounds good.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Anne.
You're very welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And thank you all for joining us this week on the Author Journey. I'm Anne O'Connell with OC Publishing, and I'll say bye for now, and we'll see you next time. I hope you're reading some great books, and if you're an author, that you're writing the next bestseller. So stay with it and have a great day. We'll talk real soon. Bye for now.